Hello and welcome to the Unlucky Frog Gaming Podcast. You are joined by your two usual hosts here. We've got Tom Mannering.
Hello.
And myself, Josh Hartley. How are we doing this week, Tom?
I'm good. I'm doing good. Thank you very much. It's been a busy week. Busy. Lots going on. We've got things to talk about this week.
Yes.
We
always have things. We always dredge something up to talk about.
So there's a difference between us having things to talk about and us making things to talk about, right? And that's kind of... And maybe you have a preference for one kind of episode over the other, but today we have things to talk about.
And you, dear listener, you now have the game going forward of figuring out which episodes are which. So let us know in the comments below. But yeah, we've got news. We've got. Should we go first? You want to go with Tabletop Scotland first? Let's just dive right in there.
Just diving in. I know, no mercy. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about Tabletop Scotland. So we got an announcement today from Tabletop Scotland. For those of you who don't have them on social media, I will let you know that Tabletop Scotland 2022. The tickets are going on sale on the 31st of March at 8 p.m. BST. So if you are interested in Tabletop Scotland, which you should be, because it's great, you could get your tickets from the 31st of March at 8 p.m. BST. And that is they're going to be at the, I'm going to hope I say this right, is it Dewars?
Dewars.
Yes, I did say it right.
The Dewars Centre?
The
Dewars?
That'll be at that centre in Perth.
Yes, up on Bank Holiday August.
The 27th and the 28th of August, yeah. So yeah, we're looking forward to that. I think that's going to be my first con back after obviously...
Could be mine as well. Could be mine. I might go to. I'm on the fence about UK Games Expo this year. Yeah. But I'm definitely going to Tabletop Scotland because we're going to be doing things at Tabletop Scotland as well. You get to see our wonderful faces and hear our dulcet tones in person as well.
I really like Tabletop Scotland for a number of reasons. The first of which is that it's very close by.
Yes.
Like convenience has a lot of accountability, but it's really nice because it obviously it is in Scotland, so it's kind of it's got as much of a kind of local community as it has, kind of extended reach as well, which is really nice. So and obviously I've only been to one previously, but I'm really looking forward to it this year. And I know we've spoke to Dave about it a little bit already as well.
Yeah, well, no doubt have Dave or one of the other chaps in charge of Tabletop Scotland on the podcast before the big event itself. I like what you said though. It's a nice size for a convention. I love the huge ones like UK Games Expo, but I'll say this: they are knackering. You need a break after. You've been to one of those.
I am not. It's weird. I didn't really know this about myself, but it makes a lot of sense. I'm not a big crowd person. Like, it's not an anxiety thing or anything like that. I just don't like it. And like, I've never liked like music festivals and things like that. And I always just thought it was because I'm not really a big fan of live music. Sorry, Josh. But I think I just don't really like really big events. Like I don't like kind of being jostled and pushed around. Mm-hmm. And I know when myself, you and Ben went to UK Games Expo a few years back, like I was getting really kind of frustrated with just, you're trying to look at something and like there's people kind of nudging you to the side and you're like, can you not? And I know it's not necessarily their fault because there's a limit on space and things. Mm-hmm. But I found it at Tabletop Scotland when we went, I could walk around comfortably. I could look at stuff. You got time to like talk to the exhibitors as well without kind of being rushed, or without them being rushed more than anything else because they're so busy. I think there's like there's like a golden point of busyness where, you know, there's enough people there that it feels good, it feels exciting, you've got the energy, but it's not kind of cross that threshold to where you lose that community almost. And I didn't feel a community at UK Games Expo. It felt like, you know, an event,
a huge convention.
Yeah. Whereas at Tabletop Scotland, I felt a lot more of that sort of community, and that's kind of what I like. That's what we had at like PaizoCon UK when I used to do that as well, and I just enjoy that more. For me personally, that's more what the hobby's about than being jostled in a big crowd.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So anyway, we'll post the link for Tabletop Scotland in the show notes below so that you can keep a beady eye on the website and get on those tickets when they launch. Righto. So what have we got next on the docket? Should we talk Betrayal at the House on the Hill?
Let's do it.
Yeah. Avalon Hill have announced that they are doing a 3rd edition of Betrayal. It's going to be coming out relatively soon, actually. The European launch is the 1st of April.
Okay.
So it's going to be out quick.
Weeks away.
Yeah. So a 3rd edition of the classic horror-based game. What does the new edition bring? Well, we're getting to set the bar low. We are getting improved miniatures. If anyone has played Betrayal at the House on the Hill, they'll know what I'm talking about. But we're also getting some new scenarios for the game as well. But I think largely, apart from a bit of an aesthetic update, largely unchanged.
So I think this is a good shout, to be honest. So we've played Betrayal at a House on the Hill, which I'm just going to refer to as Betrayal from this point onwards. Why are you pointing upwards?
Look at what I'm pointing at.
Oh, you have it above you. Okay. You're pointing you're right. Okay, just to contextualise this, you are pointing at the leave button like you want me to get out of the conversation.
Well, the leave button's not on my side of the... Right, anyway, to explain to our listeners for our audio-only podcast, because I didn't think Tom was actually going to bring this up, but anyway, I've got my board game shelf behind me, and I have Betrayal at the House on the Hill 2nd edition on there, so I was pointing at it.
Okay.
You know.
And just to contextualise, from my point of view, what I could see was Josh pointing at the leave button on Squadcast like he doesn't want me to be here anymore. And he just wants to do this solo. Yeah. I'm very fragile, Josh. So...
Please stay. Come on, carry on.
We have played... let's just be professional. We have played Betrayal many times before. You have the 2nd edition. And we've actually played it on Twitch, I think. Myself, you...
We did!
Ben
the Halloween. Way back when.
Way back in the day. I don't think that's available anymore, but you might find it on YouTube.
I think it might be on YouTube. Yeah. I'm going to have a dig. Yeah.
But we've played it a few times. I love it. Like it's a game that like I have a weird relationship with, and it's funny because I like the gameplay, but it always felt a little cheap to me. Like as a game, like the minis were never very good quality. If you remember, like you've got the little character cards, and you have like the pins that you put on their stats.
Yes.
But they never like actually sit on. They just like you put them on and they fall off. So you kind of have to like precariously balance them, kind of thing, to get them. So I'm really hoping that this edition kind of brings a degree of production value to the game. New content I could take or leave, to be honest. Like there's so much to Betrayal that unless you play it all the time, you're probably not going to see the same content twice. And if you are, it's going to be so far removed from when you last saw it. You probably won't remember it, and then you'll have different people playing the roles and stuff like that. There's so much about it, so many moving parts that can change. But at its foundation, it's actually quite a simple game as well. So I'm quite looking forward to a new edition. It's one that I've always kind of been on the cusp of picking up. So
now's a good excuse.
Might be the one that pushes me over the edge, and I'll pick it up at long last. Because I love like horror games in general. Like any kind of my favorite kind of game types, aside from Marvel-based games, are any kind of like mystery game, whodunit style game, secret traitor stuff, which Betrayal has in spades, and narrative. So it really kind of combines a lot of the things that I like, but it's just never quite grabbed me because it's never felt fully realized. It's never felt quite as polished.
Yeah,
as
I going back to something you said earlier, I do get what you're talking about with how it felt a bit cheap because I do agree with you. That being said, I own the second edition. I don't feel compelled to go out and go buy the third edition. Like this is just fine for me. I think if it was like absolutely like one of my top games of all time, yes, I would be buying it. But I'm fine with the little rubbery miniatures. They'll do.
The thing is, right, like not all games are created equal, and this is something you've got to bear in mind. That there are different budget constraints behind games, different companies involved in them. Different investments they can put into it, and I 100% get that. And that I imagine Betrayal in its earlier years probably hasn't had the budget or the expertise. I'm not sure what element it is.
Never mind either of those two. I can't mind when the second edition was published. I think I'm going to say mid to late noughties, right? So we're talking potentially like 15 years ago. The expectation wasn't there that you would have beautiful miniatures and really high quality components.
Yeah.
Gamers never really... It was great when it happened, but no one was really that bothered. No one was going on to forums and just say, these miniatures are a piece of trash. Back then. It's only in recent years where there's so many different games now on the market, and that's a big way that they differentiate themselves, is like the quality of the components. So I put it mostly down to that. It's not that they didn't have the money or the expertise, it's just that it wasn't a demand.
I'm right in thinking Betrayal had a legacy version, didn't they, as well?
It did. Me, Ben, and Charlotte played a few sessions of the legacy version because they got it one year at Christmas. So we played a few sessions of that. We never finished it though, which is a shame. The legacy version was interesting. I don't know if it was the best game to legacy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We went through a period about 4 years ago, where we were just turning every single like remotely successful game into a legacy version of it.
Yeah.
And some like Pandemic, I absolutely love Pandemic Legacy. I think that's the kind of game that works really well for that format. Betrayal, it just kind of like felt like playing several games of Betrayal after each other, and I just happened to have the same named character.
Yeah, I think it's a weird one is legacy format games because it's such an investment of time. So you're taking a game like Betrayal, which is largely pick up and play and then put away again, and that's it. You have a contained experience. And I realise we get slightly off topic, but bear with me.
That's fine, yeah.
And you make it into this commitment, where you have to play X number of games to really get the full... you can have a good game and you can have an experience within that. It's like watching an episode of a show. You can enjoy it and you can take something from it, but you're not getting as much as you would get from watching the whole season or watching the whole series. You're getting kind of a portion, a small parcel of it. I'm not... It's weird because I really like narrative form games and I like... Conceptually, I like legacy stuff. But then I know from experience, it's so hard to actually get the full experience from it. So it kind of turns me off. So like I've got... A good example of this is I've got like Blackstone Fortress and Warhammer Cursed City, which we were talking about before the episode. I've barely played them. I've had a couple of games, and I'll maybe get like a couple of friends over and we'll play a game, and then I'm like, cool, the next time I play this, it's a completely different group. And I'm like, so do I start again? Do I continue kind of the story as we'd done it? Like, how do I do that? Is that...
See, I wonder if the way to do those type of games is actually just to set aside a whole weekend and just blitz through them. But then that's a big investment in time as well.
Yeah.
Like that's difficult for a bunch of people in their 30s to achieve.
100%. Like, these games, and there's nothing wrong with it, but these games need like a dedicated game night. You need to have, okay, Tuesday night we're all going to sit down, and that's Betrayal night or Pandemic night or Cursed City night or whatever. And you all get together and you progress through it that way. And there's something to be said for doing that. But if you are blessed and or cursed as I am, where you have so many hobbies that require you to kind of invest your time already, adding another investment on that where you take a game that you kind of just want to play casually, and put it into like a campaign format becomes a bit more legwork, and it becomes a lot more challenging.
Yeah, I suppose it's like what do you want to get out of gaming, right? And certainly for me, when I'm playing board games like Pandemic, like Betrayal at the House on the Hill, and the like, I tend to approach them a lot more casually than I would say Warhammer or Dungeons and Dragons or Magic the Gathering, right? So legacy format games are probably just not for me in general. But similarly to you, I get it. I like that it exists.
Yeah.
So for those people who really love them, they can go for it. I almost feel like if I wasn't into something like Dungeons and Dragons or just role playing games in general, if I wasn't into that, I'd probably be really into these games.
Yeah.
Because I think that sort of long form narrative gaming, that itch is already being scratched. By other things that I do.
Yeah, I get you. So yeah, that's after a slight detour. That's Betrayal Edition 3, so that's quite good.
Well, we can segue quite neatly into role-playing games, because we've both been doing a bit of RPGing.
We have.
As we are wont to do.
Yes.
Both set in the Star Wars universe as well, so...
Yeah, I've had a really heavy Star Wars week. And that's not a bad thing. No.
Not a bad thing.
So... I run a game fortnightly for Josh and Co.
That's the name of our adventuring group. It's called Josh and Co.
I was gonna say it sounds like a budget, like a knockoff Disney movie.
I had in my head a British sitcom a la Open All Hours.
Okay.
Josh and Co. It's my name, the name of my lane corner shop.
So yeah, we have our Fantasy Flight Games Age of Rebellion campaign, and we played that on Tuesday. Do you want to extrapolate on that?
Yeah, so we're picking up where we left off. We had a little bit of a false restart to this campaign. We put it on ice for a little bit while we finished our Pathfinder arc, so that we could just concentrate on one system. And then life got in the way significantly during January and most of February. And the first session, we were beset by technical issues, because we're doing all of this online, of course. So I kind of think like this week was the first proper session back into it. So we are currently stationed on a rebel base on this swamp planet of, is it Jagathar? Jagamir, beg your pardon. Embarrassed myself there. We're stationed on this swamp planet of Jagamir. And there's a rumour within this rebel base that there's a spy for the Imperial, the Empire. Sorry, getting my IP mixed up there.
Getting your oppressive...
Yeah.
Oppressive.
I'm getting muddled up with my analogues for fascism, sorry.
That's the word I'm looking for. Fascist regime. That was the word.
Yeah. So we have been doing some investigation work, like chatting to some people, trying to snoop around, trying to figure out who this spy could be. And there's a particular character who was a diplomat. for the rebellion, who looked a little suspicious. He looked a little sus because he was complaining that he's struggling to get outside communications and all of this. So we decided to. The plan was Scott's character was going to chat to him and distract him and get him away from his quarters, so that me and Ryan could break into his quarters and have a look over his computer stuff and see what he's been up to. So Tom, in his wisdom, decided to play out the conversation with this character, with Scott first, right? So they're conversing in real time. It wasn't that long, but I think in game it was something like half an hour or something like that. They were having a proper chat. And the long and the short of it is, he revealed to Scott that he'd suffered at the hands of the Empire, and he's really supportive of the Rebel Alliance, and he really just wants to do the right thing and all of that. And
don't forget, his parents were killed by stormtroopers.
Were killed by stormtroopers, yeah. Scott doing a sort of perception check and doing well in that, realised, oh yeah, this guy's telling the truth. Meanwhile, Ryan and I are listening to this conversation, and we're just going, oh man, I'm going to feel really guilty about breaking into this guy's room now. But, like good role players, we did it because we didn't know that was happening. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't entirely fruitless, because I managed to, by accessing his computer, we could see that someone was declining all of his communication requests. And it was the same person, even though they weren't putting their name to it. So we think we've got a new suspect, basically, that we are going to follow up on. However, in a nice bit of Deus Ex Machina is the wrong phrase for it, but serendipitously, we've just been assigned a new mission. And that's to go away for a couple of days and investigate what we suspect is a Sith ruin. Bear in mind, in universe, in character, none of us really know who the Sith are. So all of us players know they're super evil, but we don't know who the Sith are. Apart from an NPC, Professor Ashur Sungazer, who's just been kicking around with us for ages. I'm curious if you designed him to be a permanent member of our group, or if that... Tom shakes his head, complete accident.
No, it was a total accident. So, much like many of the campaigns I've run, these are just modules that I've kind of loosely strung together. And Ashur Sungazer appeared in one that you did previously. You were at a university, and Ewan's character, who's a kind of a wannabe Jedi. He's sort of force sensitive, and he's curious about the Jedi Order and things. Got to talking with him, and you kind of, from what I recall, you kind of incriminated Ashur with your own actions, and you sort
Maybe.
of, you kind of had to abscond when you all absconded from this university, and you stole a few of the artifacts, like the holocron.
Borrowed.
Ashur basically said, well, my job was kind of to look after that holocron, and you're stealing it, so I don't really want to stay on an Empire-controlled planet with my name in tatters. So, and he kind of wanted to. I think in the module as written, I don't think he kind of comes with the party. I don't think that's kind of the intention. But you guys kind of warmed up to him, and it made sense narratively for him to come along, because he was sort of helping Ewan with his learnings about the Jedi and things, and he's really interested in the Force and things as well himself as a scholar. So he's just kind of become. He's got an interesting mix of he's this serious kind of scholarly fellow that supports the party with some intelligence and some academic knowledge, and then he's kind of got a side gig as kind of a bit of a comical turn because you sent him out to find the spy, basically.
Well, we were going to be away, so we didn't want it going cold.
You just dispatched a very sheltered bookworm to socialise with
Do you know what?
rebellious soldiers.
It'll have done wonders for him. It'll have been a great experience for him.
I did enjoy. We had a scene where you went to find him, and I did enjoy a wee role play bit with him trying to befriend a rebel soldier as you guys approached, and it was just this super awkward sort of very tense dialogue between him and the soldiers. He's doing the kind of hello fellow kids routine.
Yes.
To befriend this guy. Did you not think? And I'm maybe gonna. This is maybe a little bit of a spoiler, but I'm gonna ask you anyway. Does it not perhaps seem coincidental to you that as the trail is warming up, you suddenly get sent a new mission?
Not at all. And in fact, I think that was part of the motivation behind Ryan wanting to bring it up.
Yeah.
Because so Ryan's character Cal brought up in this meeting after we had been given our mission briefing that we suspect that there's a spy for the Empire within the base. But I think this was a bit of a miscommunication between the players. I didn't think we had enough evidence to go out and accuse someone, so I didn't want to say anything. So that was a bit awkward, but we managed to muddle through that little dialogue.
No, I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a really fun roleplay scene because you kind of had Ryan's character as a soldier. He's ex-rebellion himself, and he's kind of rejoined, and he's still finding his footing a bit with it. And you had a really interesting scene where he was trying to sort of leak out a bit of kind of a hint that there's maybe a spy in the midst. Because at that point in time, the senior element don't really know about this suspicion. You guys were kind of tipped off by a bartender. And, because he's not very socially apt as a character, they've kind of started to understand, he's not giving them the full story. So you then kind of got a little bit of a grilling by the rebel command element to find out what was going on, and you guys had to sort of backpedal a little bit. And it was a fun little roleplay scene.
It was, yeah, it was.
So
I felt bad for Ryan, though.
I felt bad for Ryan, but he handled it really well.
Yeah.
So I have another Star Wars story from a game the following night. So I'm playing in a Star Wars game as well on Wednesday nights with a largely different group. Ryan's in that group as well, but mostly different. And I'm playing a different system. We're playing Saga Edition, which is kind of a spiritual successor to the D20 Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I'm playing they're called Squibs, and they're kind of fox people.
Yeah, we were talking about him last week.
We don't discuss
issues with his with using intercoms.
Yes, and he's a pilot, and he's got a gambling problem. He's got a gambling addiction.
Right, wow.
And so we've been.
Wait, are you playing the Foxy Bingo guy?
Who?
Have you not seen the ad? Have you never seen an advert for Foxy Bingo? This anthropomorphic fox that is a bit camp and talks about bingo.
Okay, no, I haven't.
I didn't dream this. This is a thing. This is real.
Okay, no,
you made the Foxy Bingo guy.
Okay, I don't watch normal TV, so I don't really see adverts for Foxy Bingo. Okay, so he's got a gambling problem, right? So we need to find out. We're trying to find someone. We're on this sort of scummy planet called Taris, and we're trying to find out about a guy who it's quite long, so I'll try and shorten it as much as I can. We are trying to find a guy who might know where another guy we're looking for is, and
need to find a guy to find another guy. Yeah. Got it.
So we hear that the guy we're looking for was involved with this swoop gang. Now, swoop gangs are basically the equivalent of Star Wars biker gangs. But rather than riding motorbikes, they ride speeder bikes.
Yeah.
Oh, they're called swoop bikes. And I know, as Tom, I'm like, well, swoop gangs tend to engage in swoop races, which are like pod races, but with bikes. So I'm like, I've got an idea to get the information that we need from these swoop gangers. What we'll do is we'll go up to them and we'll make a bet with them, right? We've got a load of guns that we stole from some soldiers that we fought in an earlier session. So we'll offer them the guns. That'll be our wager in exchange for the information as their wager. And then I kind of warmed it up for myself and one of their swoop bikes because I wanted a bike. So we went up and we basically talked to these gangers and they accepted our wager. And sort of pan to the next scene is my guy on a swoop bike racing against one of these other swoop bike guys, sort of going around this course. So I'd found out before the race that they'd sabotaged the bike they were lending me, and it had a grenade in it. So I'd taken the grenade out, unhooked all the explosive element that was going to set it off, but kept it in the bike so that they didn't know I'd removed it. And we're going around this course, and like the guy that I'm racing against kind of falls behind me for a minute. So I'm like, right, I'm going to throw the grenade out and make it like it's kind of fallen out, and try and like knock him off course and that. And that didn't go to plan. And I'm like, okay, this isn't going great. And it turns out this guy's actually a really good swoop racer. So as much as I'm good at it, I'm kind of struggling a little bit. And I kind of, for the first 2 laps, I'm just ahead of him. But then on the 3rd lap, he kind of starts to pull in front of me because my skill rolls start to go against me. And my guy like doesn't want to lose this race because he doesn't want to like lose face as the pilot in front of his allies. Sure. And he doesn't want to lose another bet because he in the session before that he lost all his money in a casino. So I'm like, right, I've got to kind of pull this out the bag. And I'm like, right, I'll take out my pistol and I'm going to like wing his swoop bike to maybe like, send him kind of reeling a bit and kind of lose a bit of control so I can get ahead of him. So I pull out the blaster pistol.
There's a critical hit coming.
And
there's a critical hit coming, isn't there?
Kind of. So I pull out the blast pistol and I take the shot and I'm like, is that going to do anything? Because I rolled like pretty averagely. And the GM's like, you don't think so? But this system has something called destiny points. You have 1 destiny point per level. That's it. And we're level 1, so I have 1. And you can spend your destiny point to automatically critical. And I'm like sitting there and I'm like, my choice is lose or critical this guy's bike. And I'm like, it's a blaster pistol. I think the bike might be able to take it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I critical. So I use my destiny point and I critical. And everyone's like gone really tense now because this has gone from a race to a shootout. So I critical him and we roll the damage. And the GM like consults the rules and he's like, his bike is wrecked and he is going at max speed. So this guy just like,
oh no!
So he rolls damage for the guy. The guy just gets smeared across the race course. So I like pull up, but the problem is my guy's really optimistic and he's really happy and stuff. So he jumps off and he's like, I won the race! Like he's just celebrating, ignoring the fact that there's roadkill rolling up behind him. And like we look round and all the swoop bikers are like kind of pulling knives and stuff, but one of them pulls a gun and the GM's like, roll initiative. So I'm like, okay, so we roll initiative and I go first. So I think there's 4 other swoop bikers. And I see, 3 of them pull knives, 1 of them pulls a gun. So I like jump behind my swoop bike, pull out. Well, I've still got my pistol from killing that guy, and I'm like, I'll shoot the guy who's pulling a gun. I natural 20 him.
Nice.
I tap him in the head, and I'm like,
nice.
I'm a killing machine.
Stone cold killer.
Just like killed the gang leader on the racetrack, killed his second in command as soon as I pulled up, and everyone's just like, this escalated really quickly. Like this was supposed to be a race. So that was fun.
I have a question about the plan.
Okay.
So I want to just recap what the plan was. You had a bunch of guns and ammunition that you'd requisitioned from some soldiers that you'd fought.
Correct.
They had information that you were looking for.
Yes.
And your plan was to use them as wages with a gamble on racing,
yes.
Right? Was there a reason why they wouldn't do just a straight trade?
I'm a gambling addict.
Oh, okay. Right. There we go. So
he's approached a problem and gone, how can I solve this?
How can I gamble?
Yeah.
Like,
and he's seen A, an opportunity to gamble, and B, an opportunity to showboat right, and get on one of these swoop bikes, which he's really excited about because he's from like the Squibs are from quite a kind of isolated planet, and they've not had that at this point in time. They've not had that much contact with the galaxy as a whole. So he's fascinated by all these kinds of things.
I'm yet to see any in any of the films, right?
Well, they're an expanded universe, so you wouldn't see them in the. Well, they might put them in now, but I don't think they've ever been featured in any kind of like media outside of comics and books.
Let's get them on that.
They're weird. To be fair.
Get the Jim Henson puppet studio to make us some squibs for Star Wars. I want to see that.
It's funny actually. We were talking about like how if our game was a show, how would it be produced? And they were initially kind of discussing who'd be cast as like each character and stuff, and all that lot. And they were talking about my character, and they were like, "Oh yeah, you'd be like a Jim Henson puppet," and I was like, "It's 2022. I'd be CGI. Like I'd be most of the budget at this point in time." But
I'd prefer puppetry, but
I think nowadays they use a combination of the two. I think they use the puppet as kind of where possible, they will use puppets as foundation, and then they will kind of enhance them with CGI. I think that's what they do for like Grogu, stroke Baby Yoda, and stuff like that.
And like Rocket Raccoon is probably like the closest analog to the creature you're playing. Although I imagine your creature probably stands a bit taller than he does.
A little bit. I get a lot of comparisons to Rocket though, funnily enough, in game. Because he's not the concept from mine and Ryan's character started as Han and Chewie, and sort of morphed into Rocket and Groot.
Nice.
So it's not that dissimilar, to be fair. So yeah, that was really a really fun game last night. Was it last night? Yeah, last night of Star Wars, and it was just a riot. Just I love it when, as a player and a GM, I love it when you have this plan. And I actually said this in game. I was like, I've got 2/3 of the plan. I know how like the start and the middle go. I'm just not sure about the end.
Yeah, that happens a lot in RPGs.
Yeah.
It's fun though. That's half the fun.
It is, and that's where you get the fun stories like that. So that was really good.
Yeah. So before we wrap up and bring another episode to a close, it's just as usual a little reminder about our Patreon as well. So you'll find the link for such in the show notes below. You can donate as little as £1 or $1, and as always, we are very grateful for everyone who continues to show their support through that.
Thank you.
Yes. And on that note, I think that is all we've got time for. So, as always, thank you very much for listening, and until next time, take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.